We talked about these sensory neurons, but really, what are these sensory neurons? And what you need to know is that it's kind of like taking a baseball glove and catching that ball. In order for these sensory neurons to work, they kind of have to catch the stimuli, right? In this case, we saw Leia was looking at the ball that was being thrown. Here's the ball, right? And then she was watching it as it was being thrown. So the stimuli was this movement of the ball, and she could see it. Well, she used her eyes, and right here we have your eye. So if you look right here, I'm talking about an eye. So she used her eye to see that stimulus. And in the back of the eye, if you look right here, we're going to blow that up and get a super close look at that. In the back of the eye, we have a whole bunch of these receptor cells called rods and cones. And what those do is when you have light coming in, we'll talk about the eye later on, but basically this stimuli comes into your eye and it gets focused on the back of your retina right here. And then these receptor cells, these rods and cones, then send a message down your optic nerve that goes to your brain. And your brain processes this and then sends it out to the rest of your body. Okay, so we have these receptor cells that are just absolutely gorgeous, right? But that's just one type of a receptor cell. Now remember, these receptor cells are very specialized sensory neurons. So a sensory neuron, as you recall, takes stimulus from either an outside environment or an internal environment, and it transmits that signal in the form of electricity, an impulse, to the brain or the spinal cord, and then basically from there to the rest of your body. So this one is an eye. So this sensory neuron in the back of the eye, so these sensory neurons here take this stimulus and they convert this stimulus, this image that they see, into an electrical impulse, which then goes to the brain. And then the brain decides what it wants to do. In our case, the brain decided that it wanted to catch the ball that Leia was throwing. That's just one type, right? But we have other types. Look right here. This is a big old wonky taste bud. Where do you find those? You know what? You'd be very interested to find out where you find taste buds, because we used to think that taste buds were only located inside your tongue. As it turns out, they're located in your stomach as well. And there are a few other places that they found they're located in, but we can talk about those later. Okay, so taste buds, they get all these lovely, lovely chemical responses from the outside world, right? Wrong pen. And they get this chemical response in the form of, I don't know, let's say you accidentally ate a daisy flower. Well, that response might not be so great for your taste bud, but you could eat like a really yummy piece of cookie. How about a cookie? Miss Devons makes cookies. So let's say Miss Devons, there's our cookie, and let's make it a chocolate chip cookie, because you know those are the kind of cookies I make you guys. So your body, your mouth will start chewing that chocolate chip cookie, and then this taste bud right here, he's going to process all of the chemicals that are in this cookie. Well, we already know some of those chemicals in there, don't we? What is C6H12O6? Oh, did I hear you guys say sugar, glucose? It's glucose, which is sugar, right? And your taste bud loves that flavor. It certainly does. So then that taste bud sends a message, sends a message to the brain, and it says, this tastes great, I want to eat some more. Okay, so the sensory neuron here is your taste buds. But we also have them, if you look over here, these are all specialized neurons, sensory neurons, for your skin, underneath your skin. So you have ones that detect heat, ones that detect pressure, ones that sense pain, ones that sense cold, ones that sense sharp things or dull things, light as a feather or maybe a nail. So all of these have specialized functions in your skin. You have sensory receptors of hundreds of different types all over your body. All right, but I wanted to show you that they all look different, don't they? They are all specialized, their shapes are specialized, and they're specialized to do their specific job. So their shapes, again, fit their job or their function. So we're looking at the receptor cells that are very specialized sensory neurons. And remember, when we say sensory neurons, yeah, we're talking about one cell. In this case, one nerve cell. Correct? Okay, guys, so what is an interneuron? We talked about a sensory neuron where we get some sort of external stimuli or an internal stimulus, and that neuron receives it, it catches it, and so we call it a receptor. It receives it, and it transfers it into an electrical impulse that then takes it to the brain. Well, the thing is there are interneurons, and interneurons are a type of neuron that connects one neuron to another neuron. So if this signal is being transmitted, right, it's taking it, it sees it, it's acting on it, it's got to tell another neuron, and another neuron's got to decide where it's going to go, how it's going to be processed, what it does with it. And so you have one neuron talking to another neuron. So interneurons make up the brain and the spinal cord. So let me put that one down here. Let's change colors real quick. So what is an interneuron? It's a type of neuron that connects one neuron to another. Okay? This neuron, these interneurons, so these interneurons make up the brain and the spinal cord. Okay? In the brain, they're responsible for the interpretation of the sensory input. So basically, you get this input, like a ball's coming at you, and your sensory input says, there's a ball coming at me, and it goes to your brain. Now, in your brain, these interneurons have to go, all right, where do I place this? What do I do? Who do I tell to fix this? Oh, do I tell my feet? No, it's not a soccer ball. I need to tell my hands to catch that ball that Miss Devons threw at Leia and Leah. So that interneuron decides which pathway it's going to take. So let me write this down. Let me change my colors real quick. So in the brain, okay? So in the brain, these interneurons, so I'm going to say they, so we're talking about the interneurons, are responsible for the interpretation. That's a big fancy smancy word, isn't it? So when you interpret something, basically you're analyzing it. So you look at something and you decide it's good or it's bad. When you interpret data, you analyze, you look at the data and you think, does this data seem realistic? For example, if I said to you that Miss Devons ate 4,627 chocolate chip cookies in 2 minutes, you would listen to that and you would interpret what I said and go, no, I don't think so, because you're interpreting it by analyzing it. And you're thinking, is it logical for anybody to eat 4,000 cookies in 2 minutes? It's not possible. You're analyzing what I said. Well, your interneuron is analyzing the information that's coming into it from the sensory neuron. So it's analyzing what to do when it sees a baseball flying at its face, right? It says, all right, the legs are not where I need they're not what I need right now unless I run. What I need is I need my hand to go up and catch that ball. So the inner neuron is the one who decides to tell the hand to move. So the inner neuron in the brain, they're responsible for the interpretation of the sensory input. Oops, I kind of made a big thing here. So if I were to draw a couple of these little guys right now, what I would do is I would have my I'm going to draw like a little nerve, kind of like this, and like this. And I'm going to pretend that this is a nerve cell in my hand, and I just touched something super hot. So then here's the nerve cell like that. There's a lot of things. This nerve cell is a really funny one in the hand that measures heat. So it's here, and then right here, this little guy, and then this is my inner neuron here, and sometimes these dendrites can be really, really long, and they attach to other cells, and then here it's interacting with some other cells. Yep. Okay, so let me color this. So what we have here is we have my stimulus, and it's going to see something. Maybe it's going to see the ball coming, but maybe in this case it's going to see something hot. Could be that too. It touched a hot stove. And then it's going to send a signal. And remember, this is an electrical impulse. It's going to send that impulse down this pathway to the inner neuron. So this inner neuron receives this impulse, and it decides where to send it. It could have sent it to another nerve cell over here, but perhaps this nerve cell goes to the knee. So it decides to send it to this nerve here that can go to, this is a motor neuron, and we're about to talk about those, but that can go to the hand. Because we need to tell that hand to move away from the hot stove. Or perhaps we need to tell the hand to catch the ball. So it decides which pathway. So it doesn't send it to this pathway. It says, no, that's not the right pathway. This is the right pathway. This is the pathway we want to go. So you have one nerve cell here that's your receptor nerve cell, your sensory nerve cell. It sends a signal as an electrical impulse to your inner neuron. Your inner neuron decides where it wants to send it. That inner neuron sends this electrical impulse again on its way to the proper nerve. So the proper nerve in this case would be some nerve in our hand to either move it off that hot stove really fast, ouch, 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 or to actually catch the baseball if that's what we were looking at. If it was an eye, if this was the cone or a rod sending the information. Okay, so now that we've talked about the sensory neuron and the interneuron, we're going to talk about this little guy down here, which is a motor neuron. He's up next.